She took my kidney and broke my heart, 24 hours apart. As the transplant date drew closer, Ryan began to notice subtle but unsettling changes in Lisa. It started with the little things. She stopped laughing at his jokes, no longer reached for his hand during car rides, and began spending more time locked away in the study or out with vague excuses about errands or needing space. Her responses became clipped, her presence cold. Conversations that once flowed into the early hours of the morning now died out in silence after a few obligatory words. Ryan tried not to take it personally. He reminded himself daily that she was facing something terrifying, a life-threatening illness, the looming prospect of dialysis, and now the emotional weight of a major surgery. People reacted to fear in all kinds of ways. Still, it was hard to ignore the emotional wall she was building between them. There was no longer any warmth in her touch, no affection in her voice. Their once passionate marriage had turned into a mechanical routine of caregiving and strained politeness. He made excuses for her behavior. She's scared, he told himself. She's hurting. He Googled articles about how chronic illness affects relationships, hoping to find validation that this was normal. Maybe she was just trying to shield him from her pain. Maybe she was pushing him away because she didn't want him to suffer along with her. But late at night, while she pretended to sleep with her back turned, Ryan lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with a question he didn't dare speak aloud. Does she even love me anymore? He never voiced it, never confronted her. Instead, he buried the doubt deep within and doubled down on being supportive. He attended every appointment, coordinated with the transplant team, and filled out every form. He chose to believe that once the surgery was over, once she felt better, things would go back to normal. That the woman he fell in love with was still in there, just buried under pain and fear. Even as her emotional withdrawal deepened, Ryan pushed forward with the donation without hesitation. Because love, to him, wasn't about how he felt in the moment. It was about the vows they took, in sickness and in health. Even if she had nothing left to give, he was going to give her everything. The weeks leading up to the transplant were some of the most grueling of Ryan's life. Every step of the process demanded something from him: his time, his body, his peace of mind. He went through an endless string of invasive tests, scans, blood work, and psychological evaluations to ensure he was a suitable donor, and he was, perfectly matched. Fate, it seemed, had chosen him to save Lisa's life. But saving her life came with costs. Ryan had to take an extended leave from work, missing out on a major promotion he'd spent years working toward. He watched as months of financial planning unraveled with each medical bill, each missed paycheck. Still, he never hesitated. He told himself this was temporary, that once Lisa was better, everything would stabilize, that his sacrifice would bring them closer, maybe even be the thing that reignited the love that had dimmed over the past year. The day of the surgery arrived. Ryan lay on the hospital bed, heart pounding, fingers twitching anxiously as they prepped him for anesthesia. In his mind, he played back every moment of their relationship: the first kiss, the night he proposed, the way she cried on their wedding day. This kidney, this piece of him, was a love letter written in blood and flesh, a vow renewed. The surgery was a success. Lisa's body accepted the kidney without complication. Her vitals stabilized, her cheeks gained color. The doctors were optimistic. It worked. He had done it. He had given her life again. Ryan, however, was wrecked. The post-op pain was relentless, like a hot blade twisting in his side. Every breath was a struggle, every movement a small war. But through the haze of medication and agony, he clung to one bright thought: this will fix us. She'll see how much I love her now. Things will finally get better. He smiled when he saw her, even through the pain. He believed they had survived the worst. He believed they'd grow stronger from here. He had no idea that everything was about to unravel. The day after surgery, barely 24 hours after Ryan had given up a part of his own body for her, Lisa came into his hospital room. She was dressed, alert, and strangely composed, too composed. Ryan, still groggy from the medication, tried to sit up to greet her. wincing at the searing pain along his side. She didn't come to hold his hand or kiss his forehead. She didn't even ask how he was feeling. Instead, she stood at the foot of his bed and said, "We need to talk." Even in his drugged-up haze, something in her tone made his stomach drop. "I want a divorce," she said, calm and flat. No tremble in her voice, no trace of guilt. Ryan blinked, thinking maybe he misheard. "What?" "I haven't been happy for a long time," she continued, her voice like ice. "I didn't want to say anything before the surgery. I didn't want to hurt you or mess things up." He stared at her, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, his brain scrambling to catch up with what he was hearing. The pain in his body suddenly became secondary to the pain detonating in his chest. "You waited until after I gave you my kidney to say this?" he asked, barely able to speak, his voice hoarse. Lisa looked away briefly, as if mildly inconvenienced by the confrontation. "I didn't want to complicate things. You were already so invested in the transplant. I just didn't see the point in stopping it." There were no tears in her eyes, no remorse, just clinical detachment, as if they were discussing splitting a phone plan, not a marriage. Ryan, still stitched up, raw, vulnerable, felt like the floor had been ripped out from beneath him. He couldn't stand, couldn't run, couldn't even leave the room. He was trapped in that bed with tubes in his arm, a deep surgical wound in his abdomen, and the realization that the woman he loved had used his love as leverage. He had been reduced to a transaction, and now she was walking away with a piece of him, literally and figuratively, without so much as a backward glance. It wasn't just betrayal, it was betrayal after sacrifice. And that kind of pain doesn't just hurt. It rewrites you. In the weeks following the bombshell, Ryan struggled to make sense of his new reality. Recovery from the surgery was hard enough. Each movement reminded him of what he had given, what he had lost. But the emotional toll was far worse. He tried to rationalize Lisa's decision, clinging to the idea that maybe the trauma of her illness had warped her mind. Maybe the near-death experience had changed her, shaken her identity, made her question her life and what she wanted from it. People do strange things when faced with mortality, right? But the truth refused to stay hidden. It started with a late-night message from one of Lisa's former friends, someone who had always liked Ryan and never quite approved of the way Lisa treated him. The message was simple. "You deserve to know the whole story." Attached were screenshots of text messages, dozens of them, between Lisa and a man named Derek, a co-worker she had mentioned once or twice in passing but never gave much detail about. As Ryan scrolled through the texts, his heart sank. The messages were intimate, playful, emotionally charged. Lisa had confided in Derek during her illness, complained about Ryan, expressed doubts about her marriage. The tone was unmistakably flirtatious, sometimes explicitly romantic. There were late-night, "I wish you were here" messages and even pictures. Based on the timestamps, this had been going on for months, long before the transplant. Ryan's hands shook. It wasn't just the betrayal of a kiss or an affair. It was the intentional deceit. Lisa had emotionally and very likely physically invested in someone else while stringing him along. And then came the worst part. In one of the leaked messages, Lisa wrote to Derek, "I have to wait until after the surgery. If I leave now, they might not approve the transplant, or he could change his mind." She had known. She had planned. She had timed her betrayal down to the day. Ryan sat there, the room spinning around him, as the enormity of it crashed down. His love hadn't just been taken for granted, it had been exploited, used like a bargaining chip. She had let him bleed for her while hiding the knife behind her back. A week later, Ryan finally gathered the strength to confront Lisa. He was still moving slowly, still bandaged and sore, but something inside him had shifted. He wasn't confused anymore. He was furious. He asked her to come by the apartment to pick up the rest of her things. When she arrived, she acted like it was a simple errand, emotionless, like they hadn't spent nearly a decade building a life together. She barely looked at him. Ryan didn't waste time. He placed the printouts of the messages on the table. She didn't flinch. She didn't even act surprised. "So?" she said flatly, crossing her arms. Ryan's voice trembled with disbelief. "You lied to me. You used me. You planned this. While I was trying to save your life, you were already gone." She shrugged. "You would have given it to me anyway." He stared at her, stunned. "And you don't even feel bad?" Lisa finally looked at him, her eyes colder than he'd ever seen. "At least now I don't have to pretend anymore." It hit harder than any physical pain. The woman he once adored, who he thought he knew down to her soul, had become someone else entirely. Someone cruel, calculating, hollow. There was no closure, no apology, just a quiet cruelty that left Ryan feeling like a fool for ever believing she loved him at all. Tens of thousands of people responded. Some shared their own heartbreaks, others offered empathy, rage, or simple encouragement. "You're a hero," one person wrote, "not because of what you gave her, but because of what you survived." For the first time in months, Ryan felt seen, not as a victim, not as a fool, but as someone who made the hard choice to love, to give, to keep his dignity even when it was all falling apart. 6 months passed. One morning, out of the blue, Ryan's phone buzzed with a notification, a message request from Lisa. The preview read, "Hey, I was just wondering how you're doing. Thought maybe we could catch up." He stared at it for a long time, heart pounding, but not because he missed her. It was because he finally saw her clearly. He didn't feel rage anymore, just clarity. Her relationship with Derek hadn't lasted. Ryan had quietly learned through mutual acquaintances that Derek ghosted her after a few months. Apparently, real life with Lisa wasn't quite as thrilling as sneaking around with someone else's wife. Shocking. Ryan never replied. He blocked her number, deleted the message, and went on with his day. There was no dramatic speech, no need for closure. He had already given her everything he could. There was nothing left for her to take, and for the first time in years, he felt truly free. Over time, Ryan started dating again, slowly, cautiously. He wasn't looking for fireworks or fairy tales. He was looking for honesty, peace, something real. He knew the red flags now, knew what emotional manipulation looked like, what indifference felt like. He also knew his worth. He didn't need anyone to validate his love, his sacrifice, or his story. He had walked through hell and come out standing, maybe scarred, maybe stitched up, but standing nonetheless. And as he closed out his final journal entry, he typed the words with calm, quiet pride. "She may have walked away with my kidney, but I walked away with my dignity. And that's something she'll never get back."